Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. International break is, halfway over. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
I'm good. I think it's safe to say that the international break is close to being over. Like a lot of the European teams have already done their thing. Certainly, We'll talk about Erling Haaland today. He's done his 2 matches. All of the England outfit are through their 2 matches, and I don't think there are too many major injury concerns to go through. I know you've put a whole kind of list together of who's on our injury sort of watch list.
Some quick hits. Yeah.
I gotta say, Josh, just to further this preamble, this ice-breaking session before we get into it, this international break hasn't hurt as hard as I thought it was going to. I'm kind of taking it in stride.
I think so too. I stuck to my guns. On last week's pod, I was like, do the family stuff, to have some family time. And we went shopping yesterday, Brandon. It was great. I bought a new record, which there's a new record shop that opened up in my neighborhood in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And it was one of those experiences where I actually didn't see any records I wanted to buy. But I kind of wanted to support the shop, and I was also just in the mood to buy something. You must know this experience, Brandon.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Shop therapy.
Yeah, this is how you end up with 13 chore coats, right? Because you love the
right. Yeah, exactly. Feels good.
Exactly. So I bought a Nick Cave album because when in doubt, buy more Nick Cave. He's got about 27 releases, and so you can basically never stop buying new.
Do you have your Nick Cave white whale? Do you have a white whale in the Nick
Cave
universe?
That is I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay,
I don't know. Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I have other white whales that I should save for a later, an even more news-free podcast than this one, Brandon. We do have a lot of.
We're already reaching for fantasy content, as people can understand.
There's lots. Yeah, there's lot. I mean, there is lots to talk about because I want to look ahead, not just at game week 12. I want to look ahead from game week 12 to 16. I mean, now we're not going to go through, every single fixture across. You're not going to look at all 6, whatever that is, 50 fixtures. But I do think that the international breaks, a lot of people will be triggering wild cards this week, right? Or at the very least, probably have to make. I think a lot of people are going to be forced to make multiple transfers. I mean, that's a situation that I'm in right now where I logged on earlier today and I knew I had a couple flags. I was not expecting 6 flags, Brandon. Okay. A great American, great American amusement park has just turned into a terrible way to look at a terrible look for your fantasy team.
Yeah.
And so I'll go through those in a second, but I think it's a good time to take stock of and look sort of several fixtures ahead. And I think this is just in general, it is the best way to play fantasy, the smartest way to play fantasy. It's very tempting sometimes to be like, X team is playing this bad squad, right? Mm-hmm. And I need to load up Man City are hosting Southampton. Oh, that's going to be an explosion of goals. I need to find a way to get it, more than just Haaland in this match. How else can I double or triple up, right? And or whatever, right? And you sort of, and often that comes back to haunt you. And I think that if you're looking 4 or 5 weeks ahead, 6 weeks ahead, I think that 5 is like the magic number. I think once you go past 5, it just starts to get a little complicated. Rarely does a team have a great 6-week run, right? It's like 5, even 5 is kind of stretching it, but for some reason I find 5 to be a little. That's just the number that I tend to use when I'm looking at. Do you look? You just look at the game week in front of you, right? You've actually never know what's 2 weeks ahead, right?
No.
Yeah.
I'm always shocked at how long the season is because I keep expecting the season to end after this, whatever
you
the
think
next
it's a 1
game
week
week
season.
is.
Yeah, exactly.
Three game week chunks feel right for my appetite, and anything beyond that feels like speculation.
Too much. Yeah.
But I tend to lose faith and patience pretty quickly, even though I'll hang on to players. I will mentally turn on people. So 3 weeks is kind of like all you have to prove something to me.
Okay. Yeah. So how many flags do you have in your squad right now?
Yeah, I'll just share my team on the screen right now for those watching, and I'll talk through it on the pod. Looking at my team, Henderson in goal, Anthony Robinson, Mikolenko, and Konsa across the back line. And these are all incredible home fixtures for my defense. Wolves at home for Robinson, Brentford at home for Mikolenko, Palace at home for Konsa. And that's where Alex and his Palace fandom come in. Palace not looking great right now. So then it's two flags in the midfield with Mbomo and Foden. What's the word on Mbomo, Josh? Do we know anything about this flag?
Yeah, there actually was a quote from let's see if I can find it here. Well, so, Mbomo is a Cameroonian international, and his manager announced that he was injured. So his manager for Cameroon said that he was injured, unable to play. And so that's kind of all we know. And so it could be that it's a nothing. It's one of those, like, it's really more like rest and rehab kind of 2 weeks, right? Yeah. And other times it is more serious. I mean, this happened, I think it was like, I can't remember who it was, Calvert-Lewin or something. Like, it was like one of these, like, oh, he should be fine. And then they were out for 10 weeks. It's like a couple of, it's like, so you never really know with these international break injuries. Sometimes it's real and sometimes it's not. And so we should hopefully know more in the next couple of days. I know that's a very boring answer in some cases, but all we know is he is vaguely flagged, but he played, I think, the full 90, right, in the last match.
Yeah, so. I suspect he's fine. He would be low down on my list of issues to solve.
Sure.
Foden, even if he wasn't flagged, is going to be out for me. It's Foden to Palmer is one of my 2 free transfers that I'm definitely going to use. And then say Mbomo is, for whatever reason, is not fit. I have Liam Delap first on my bench, who's home hosting Manchester United. Manchester United definitely rebounding, new manager coming in after the break, looking defensively sound. Yep. I'm very happy to bench Delap here. And then, rounding out the midfield, Smith Rowe, Salah, and Rodgers, Haaland and Wood. And now these are the big boys. The big news from the international break seems to be Premier League strikers just going off. Chris Wood scored 2 goals in 1 minute today against some faceless nation state in the Oceania Conference.
Good to see his confidence still high, though. It's
absolutely. It's incredible. And Haaland scored 1 earlier in the break and a hat trick today. So is he back? Is it just a matter of him being away from Man City? He can free up his confidence a little bit, and then once he comes back to the Premier League, it's going to be what we've seen the last month or so. I don't know. So right now, squad feels relatively intact with just the 2 flags. I'm hopeful to just using that 1 free transfer and rolling another one into game week 13.
Yeah, and I think Delap is actually, like, he's fine if he has to come in and, like, a home match against Man United. I actually think there's a pretty good chance he scores in that. So I think you're kind of fine if he comes in. This looks like, your squad looks like a hold to me as well. I know people listening to the podcast can't see it, but like you said, a lot of home fixtures here. I mean, God, it's what is it? 8 out of 11? Is that what you were? Yeah, so it's a fun spot to be.
Definitely.
Konsa was lightly flagged, by the way. He's not actually flagged on the site right now, but he was. He had to leave. Was it the England match? He had to leave with like a slight injury, so there could be something there too.
It seems like every international break, Konsa shows up to England camp and leaves with a
small injury,
and it's very annoying. It's super annoying.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't play, then Pedro Porro would come off. And this is kind of like the narrative that's been building in the fantasy community. This break is Spurs could be missing Romero. They're definitely missing Mickey Van de Ven. So no first choice central defense. Is Man City finally going to find some attacking joy at home against a generally lackluster defense in Spurs, at least this season?
I mean, I don't know, but then I was because I was looking, and I don't want to turn this into the injuries pod, but it's kind of remarkable when you look at the Man City injury list too. Nunez, and I'm not even including long-term injuries here, right? Like Rodri and Grealish and others, but Nunez, Akanji, Stones, Foden, Diaz, and Ake are all flagged, right? So basically the entire back line is flagged. And I'd imagine at least half of those players will be able to play this weekend. So I don't necessarily see this as like a massive bounce back match for them, right? I think that it could be, I think it could be a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
Again,
another struggle. We shall see. So this is my feeling with Haaland is, great, I have him. I'm not going to move him, though there are some compelling cases. We've been fielding some questions from our supporters on the Discord about like double moves to get Haaland out. And the guys that are being brought in, I think, make it worth it. Like, I'm going to drop Haaland and ex midfielder to get, Salah and Isak. I mean, these are moves I can fully get behind for sure. But with me not having how I feel major problems to solve, I get to roll with Haaland here. But I'm still planning to captain Mo Salah, even though he's away. He's away against a hilarious Southampton team.
Yeah, easy captain decision this week. Sure. I agree. Yeah, that's a gimme. I mean, my team. The problem I have right now, and I won't share my screen just because I don't feel like it. But the issue for me is I just have a bunch of injuries in my squad right now, and so Semenyo has the quote is he's nursing an injury of the patella tendon due to an overload of games. So to me, that sounds like should be fine. Like playing a lot of minutes as a minor injury, something that he could use as an excuse not to go play internationally.
And they referenced a part of the body that 99 out of 100 people couldn't point to. So
is the patella? It's like their shin bone or something, isn't it? Isn't that where the patella is?
I'm actually looking at like WebMD right now. It's somewhere around the kneecap. It may. Yes, it's surrounding the knee.
Surrounding the knee. Okay. Yeah. And let's see. Mboma, we talked about already. Vardy has a back injury, a total TBD. Who knows, right? We'll see if we see him in training this week. And then Trent has the classic. By the way, a new, like, not even new. This is a long-time bugaboo of mine, but it's gotten worse, I feel like, as we enter the era of
play the Josh Landon bugaboo drop before you go into this.
Yeah, please do. But it's the classic. I feel like it's like the SEO like race to the bottom or whatever. But even like sites like Liverpool Echo now, like will write an article like where the headline is like the latest on Trent Alexander-Arnold's injury, and it's literally nothing. It's like it might as well have been written by AI, right? It's like there's nothing there. And it's just it might have been, right? And it's just a quote from 7 days ago about Trent. Like there's nothing,
and then a zillion pop-up ads.
Yeah, and then a zillion pop-up ads. It's such garbage, and it's so irritating to me. And credit to Premier Injuries. So I often make fun of that website because it sounds like a hitman for hire, company, Brandon. But it's like at least like they keep the stuff updated regularly. You can actually go in there and get whatever the latest news is. You can actually like find it in a very relatively easy drop down menu.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Trent is in a race against time, Brandon, to be ready for this Southampton match. The problem as a Trent owner is one, he's been Drek, like he's just been a black. He has not been the biggest black hole on my team, but he's just one of many black holes, Brandon. We'll see if these holes all converge into a supermassive black hole at some point. Yeah, exactly. Gargantua, exactly. That's but the problem is they play Southampton away, right? A match that even with a like Bradley, who's he's like 8/10. I mean, he's quite good himself, right? So even with Bradley in there, they should be able to win that match. And then at midweek, they play Real Madrid. And then the following weekend, they play Man City. So I don't see a lot of upside in rushing Trent back for the Southampton match when you have Real Madrid in the Champions League and Man City several days after that, right?
Perfect opportunity to give a great a great player at the club and Connor Bradley.
Like up and coming. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So I think who knows? But like it feels unlikely to me that that we see Trent this weekend. And so that could inform my transfer decisions too. In fact, when I put my team into review, that was a move they suggested was a very simple Trent to Gabriel move, Arsenal's Gabriel. And so one of Arsenal's many Gabriels, I should say, but the center back Gabriel.
Sure. He's the alpha Gabriel, I would suggest.
I know it is hard to, it's hard. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they all play different positions, but when you can't just say, I guess he's the only one who goes by Gabriel, right? Everyone else, he's sort of Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus. He's the only one you just say Gabriel for, right? So I guess you're right. He does have a kind of a primacy within that team, doesn't he, Brandon?
Yes.
So I might do that. I could do -4 as well. Like if Vardy is out and there's any kind of long-term issue, another possible move would be to do that, and then actually do Vardy to Isak, which is another
I like it.
Kind of fun move. I mean, if you're going to take a -4, I do enjoy doing it for forwards, right? Because it's just a little easier to turn that return
one
into a
goal, and
it's
you've already paid for itself.
Yeah, exactly.
So you, if memory serves, you have a lot of money in the bank. So Trent to Gabriel and then Vardy to Isak is something you could do quite easily, right?
Yeah, exactly. I could do both. I mean, I actually think I could do both with just the money that Trent to Gabriel would. Well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be quite that much, but it's
you're not willing to dip into your CD fund at this point?
The question is, so the reason I have all this money is because I was planning to move one of my cheaper midfielders to Saka.
Yeah.
And we just don't know where we are with Saka right now. And I still want to have Saka long term. And I mean, it's funny, we spent all this time talking about like the try to get 3 out of 4 player strategy. And I haven't been able to do it because there's just so many injuries, right? Yeah, and so, but the problem is if I make this Isak move, which I mean, like again, I'm just throwing ideas out there. We'll see who's injured and who's not in a few days. If I make that move, it does kind of mean I've got to make another move to get Saka, right? It's like, it's like I can't. Then I wouldn't get Saka until at least game week 14, right? And unless I'm just taking hits every week, which you want a great way to end up in the millions, Brandon. Just start taking hits every single week. Like every year, it's like you see these like gambling things where these people hit like these 10-leg parlays, right? And it's like, oh, it's so amazing. Like I can't believe it. It's a 1 in a million, and I bet $4 and I won 10,000 or whatever. Like the people who take hits every week and somehow end up with an amazing rank are the people hitting these 10-leg parlays, right? In general, if you are going to lose 4 points every single week and everyone else is like a relative, like, in a kind of larger sense, everyone else is not losing 4 points every week, on balance, you are going to end up behind all those other people, right? Because it's not like you're just, sure, in some cases you just have like, 3 red flagged players who are just, they're not coming back for 3 months and then you've got to take a hit and there's no way around it. But often what you're doing is you're just replacing players who you don't really like anymore or want in your team anymore, right? And we've all done that a million times, and suddenly those players return the week that you drop them, right? I mean, this happens constantly. So I don't want to be doing hit after hit, but with 6 flag players, I may not have a choice. So let's see where we are.
So it's like a real roller coaster ride with this team, if
6
you catch
flags,
my drift,
buddy. So no news on Saka, and then just another thing I flagged, which is I'm surprised by how many injuries. There's a lot of issues right now with Villa. Like they've gotten completely banged up by what seem like legit international break injuries. Onana, Pau Torres, Maatsen, and Konsa, although Konsa we'll see about, have all picked up injuries just on the international break alone. So they could be in a little bit. This season's already turning into a little bit of like second season or whatever you want to call it, first year in the Champions League syndrome, right? We've seen this lots of times before. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. So that's kind of where we are. Again, we have more matches to go. And I think, what I want to do in a second here is just start to look ahead to game weeks 12 through 16. I did, Brandon, want to note 2 things. One is that we are on Blue Sky now. So if you are interested in moving, listen, we don't talk politics on this website, or on this website, and this podcast, and we try to talk politics at all in any of our platforms. Okay. Like it's pretty easy to get politics literally everywhere else.
If you want to call me on the phone, I'll talk to you about politics that way.
If you want to play, if you want to play poker with us, we'll talk politics happily, but
I'll share my phone number at the end of the podcast if you want to skip ahead.
But we maybe felt like it was time for us to spend more time in a different social media network where when you post links, your posts don't get immediately throttled to the point where you sort of wonder why you're even on that network at all, even though you've built up 50,000 followers on there. And so, listen, who knows what network I'm talking about here, Brendan? But we have moved to Blue Sky, and I'm enjoying it just because it has this kind of the feel. I mean, this is a free. I don't mean to do free promo work for this free social media website, but it has the feel of fantasy Twitter like 10 years ago, which is, right when you and I started to get into it. And it's kind of a chance, I think, to restart a little bit and kind of like go back to zero in terms of who you're following and who you're interacting with. And I was shocked by even just like little posts, little things. It feels like real humans are seeing my posts and responding again. But who knows? Maybe it'll all go away in a year, right? But it is fun to have that for now. So we're just always cheating. I think it's always cheating FPL on Blue Sky, but if you just look for always cheating, you'll find us there. So
it reminds me of Lance Armstrong, when he got testicular cancer. It was devastating for his career, but then he saw it as an opportunity where his body was going to get really broken down by the cancer and the cancer treatment. And then he was able to rebuild his body in such a way that it was perfect for a cycling career. And that is what he used to credit his great comeback and great run with, that opportunity to really build back from zero, as you say. So what I'm looking for,
where's the cheating? Where does the rampant cheating fit in all this?
Well, that's what I want to know. I'm waiting for Blue Sky to offer us a way to pay for like a blue check mark and stuff like that, and that would be great.
I think that is. Well, the thing is, I actually, and I don't want to get too like sidetracked here, but I actually would do it. Like if it's like, if having a small fee, like I think what they said is like the site will always be free, but you can pay. We may eventually have some bonus features so you can pay a couple bucks a month for or whatever. And like if they introduce some things, like if there's a little bit of like, I don't even call it gatekeeping, but just like if there's a way to keep the site from having to like make lots of, it's all a matter of time. Everything gets worse and corrodes eventually, Brandon, but I think if there's a way to keep it like a little better, right? And not having to make all these like deals with the devil, like these algorithmic tweaks, then I think that's worth $2 a month or whatever, right? So we'll see. But Brandon, let's now move on to talk about Patreon. Why don't you do a quick Patreon?
Absolutely. If social media is not your thing, but you want to kind of keep in touch and get more fantasy content from the cheaters, you can become a supporter and go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. There are multiple levels of support there. At the basic level, you get immediate access to our Always Cheating Discord, where we got hundreds of friendly and smart supporters on there talking FPL and all sorts of other things. And the great feature that people love the most, of course, is an extra podcast, ad-free, each week that we record Thursday nights, very close to that game weekend deadline, where we can catch up on any final thoughts about injury news, other matches in the midweek that we missed before our main feed podcast. So it's a great way to say thanks and get involved. Go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. And
excellent.
That's the read.
No, I know. I was getting I was trying to work on sharing a screen off of.
What's up with us tonight? It's just like we're just kind of like it's the Sunday scaries. My wife and I were actually like you were saying, take advantage of no Premier League and go out and have brunch with the family. My wife and I were eating and we were talking to the waitress, and she says, "Well, what else do you guys have planned for today?" And I said, I was going to go take a nap. And she said, I'd like to do that. I do get the Sunday scaries. And it got me thinking, people who work in the service industry could work like 7 days a week. They could work 8 days a week. But I was kind of like, you're working right now and you're going to get the Sunday scaries? It was very confusing to me. So I'm still working that out in my head.
Yeah, that's true. If you're already working on, like, maybe she has 2 jobs. Did you ever think about
totally,
that?
Yeah, very, very plausible. Very plausible in this economy.
Painting houses on early Monday morning.
Well, you're saying she's like an assassin for the mob?
Is painting houses assassin code?
That was the whole thing. And the Irishman, Robert De Niro's character, he painted houses.
You and I have very different opinions of The Irishman. To me, that is a 3 out of 5 star Scorsese movie, and I think for you, it's like a 5.
There's so much depth of emotion in that movie, and it really, especially as you get near the end, just like this real profundity about the end and old and aging and the world passing you by.
I know and those themes really resonate with you, but you are older than me, and so maybe in a few years when I 10 years when I catch up, I'll watch it again.
I remember when I saw Harvey Keitel and The Irishman, I was like, I'm not far behind you, my friend. We'll see you on the other side.
30 years older than you. But yeah, I don't know. It was right when that de-aging technology was like taking off, and honestly, it was like, we all know what Robert De Niro looked like when he was 35. It's like, and so it was like very weird to like the de-aged De Niro really like it threw me off. Like
there's something called a willing suspension of disbelief.
I couldn't do it. I've seen like 47 De Niro movies. It was like, I could not, like his face is too familiar to me. I could not do it. I mean, it's funny because I just saw King of Comedy for the first time. It's like
that's funny. I watched that this weekend as well. How about that?
Really?
How do you like that?
Oh, yeah,
yes, I watched it. I watched it yesterday. He looks exactly the same. The King of Comedy. Sandra Bernhard looked fantastic in that.
Yeah,
movie,
she did. Yeah, she's got a cool look. Maybe we underrate her as an actress a little bit.
Always have.
All right. Well, let's move on, Brandon, to game week 12 to game week. Well, mostly game week 12. We'll talk about game week 12 like in a more fixture basis in a minute. But at game week 12, 13, 14, I'm actually going to drop a fixture from this little chart here. Let's move from 17 to 16. There we go. That's a little easier to look at. Maybe that's why I like to look at 5 fixtures at a time, Brandon. It's just easier to look at on my screen. But we've got I thought it was, one thing I try to think about when I'm looking ahead to the next, handful of weeks is, I just try to, I guess it's like, this is maybe like the most obvious thing, right? But it's like, just generally like, am I going to get a lot of home fixtures over the next like handful of weeks, right? And if so, like those, like, fixtures to me are more important than form. Like I'm always going to lean towards fixtures, especially when you have these international breaks where I feel like form kind of resets a little bit over a 2-week break. Like, I don't know about you, but I feel like if a player is just like going off and having an amazing run, like the last thing I want is international break. I feel like it always kind of like ends that little run of, confidence or whatever it is, that whatever mystical quality that I mean, literally, like I just, it's honestly just an element of confidence, right? Like you just feel like these players like just feel like they're like a little more, I don't know. It's like I don't want to sound like I'm too I feel like anytime you say a word like confidence, it sounds like you're in this like woo woo, like I don't believe in stats like world, but genuinely
you could frame it like
a player's more confident.
You can, and you could frame it like the age old commentary where the color guy, he claims that a player should have converted a chance. Like that's got to be a goal. He's got to be scoring there. Yeah. And the implication is it's easy as 1, 2, 3. And players going through these runs of poor form, I think, illustrate how difficult this sport is at the highest level. For most, I mean, there are the rare exceptions that make everything look easy, but Haaland is trying to you've seen Haaland convert any kind of chance, but in this point, like every chance that Haaland tries to convert is quite difficult. Yeah. So to come out of that, confidence is a huge issue to take you over that level, to actually start converting more of these chances, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. And so when we look ahead to that has only a little bit to do with what I'm about to go into here, but I did get we're just like we're gonna have to accept, Brandon, that this is us. What's the shaggier podcast? That's and I thought I had such a tight theme for us for this week too, such a tight, clean theme. But let's get back to basics then, which is basically who's got good fixtures and who's got bad fixtures over the next 5 weeks. Okay, that's a nice clean reset for us, sure, Brandon. Yeah. So looking ahead to the next 5 weeks, I think it's a little tricky. It's like Arsenal are there's been all this talk about you've got to kind of target like Arsenal around game week 12 was when the swing really starts, right? But that sort of was back when we thought we had an Arsenal team that was sort of fit and firing and relatively healthy. We thought Odegaard would be back, which he is, but now Saka may or may not be back. Talk about confidence, right? This team feels like it's in need of like a serious reset. Like maybe the international break accomplished that. It's hard to say, if Saka, especially if he's not injured. But I also think just like in terms of their run, it's a little I don't think it's quite as easy as it looked at first glance, or at least it did a few weeks ago, right? Like Forest at home in game week 12. I mean, Forest have been fantastic this season. I mean, I know they had a tough match against Newcastle, right?
Yeah.
But previous to that, they'd been really strong all season, both defensively and in terms of their their attack is mostly just Chris Wood, but it's worked out quite. I mean, Callum Hudson-Odoi has had some moments, and Morgan Gibbs-White, when he's been healthy, has been good as well. But regardless, not an easy match. Away to West Ham, okay, that's not a bad one, given where they are. Although if West Ham end up sacking their manager in the next week and a half, then maybe they're maybe that becomes a little tougher, because that is what happened with game week 14, right? Is Man United suddenly Bruno feels like he's maybe like a little bit back on the table as an option. And I don't think that is a straightforward or easy match anymore, especially if you look at their kind of defensive, Arsenal defensively, right? I mean, looking at all three game weeks, 12, 13, and 14, and then if you want to include 15 as well, away to Fulham, like maybe I see 2 clean sheets there, right? I don't see 3. Definitely not 4. I mean, not the way that they've been playing. And Ben White now is injured as well, so there's like just a lot of problems right now with the squad.
Yeah, I'm with you on this read of the Arsenal run. You have the combination of these fixtures that most of them you could see going any which way. Very few of them you can tell the exact story of what's going to happen, combined with Arsenal not being in a good run of form. Does the international break fix that? We have no earthly idea. And I think betting on that feels bad to me. So, overextending on Arsenal right now, and how I would define overextending on Arsenal would be, I guess, punting on somebody who's not Gabriel, and punting on anyone who's not Saka. Like Gabriel and Saka feel like the only Arsenal players that you would even touch with the 10-foot pole. Maybe Raya, of course, if you already have him. But double Arsenal defense, I would not co-sign on that.
No.
Not at all. And
in general, spending time and energy trying to find defenders, it's probably like a fool's errand at this point. Yeah. Like again, I've said this a lot on the podcast, but I do think come January, February, I think we will see the great reset, kind of see it every season, right? Where teams figure it out, find a system that works best for who they've got, who's healthy, right? And I think we will see a lot more clean sheets. But the first half of the season has just been a mess in terms of finding good defensive prospects.
Yeah. Another injury news item from this week is Trossard came off the pitch during a Belgium match. I think it was today. Does that mean Martinelli is like some sort of a punt? But again, I don't think either of us are really in the mood for an Arsenal punt right now. And Martinelli are just kind of chasing the one goal he scored last week. He's done nothing else this season.
If Saka were healthy, right? Like if he's fine and he starts training if he's back in training on Tuesday and he's, we just don't know, right? I mean, he left. When did he leave the match this weekend with the injury? It was like,
in the 80th minute, I think.
Was he okay? So it was a bit late in the match, but still. But it was, he had to be forced.
It was orchestrated. I'm going deep state on this one.
You are you really? I think he was probably properly injured. I mean, given that they're playing Chelsea at home, it was that was a match they really needed to win, right? So I know you're joking, but I suspect that he was genuinely forced off.
Sure.
So Arsenal, a little bit tricky, I think. And Saka, there's really nothing we can even say on this current pod because we just don't know where he's going to be in a couple of days. I think if he's back and healthy, he's a genuine buy, even given Arsenal's form, just because he's involved in everything that they do, right? He's involved in their attack at all times. And he just has maybe the highest floor outside of maybe Mo Salah in terms of any fantasy prospect in the game, right? It's just so easy for him to sneak his way into 5 points, 6 points, right? Even when he's not having a great game or not super involved, you're like, Saka got, an assist and a bonus point, like again, like I don't know how he did it.
We saw him get bonus earlier in the season without any attacking returns. Like this is how central he is to the team, and also how the bonus point structure is currently favoring the way he plays. So it's a good buy, all things considered. True.
Yeah. So the other teams that have really strong fixtures over the next couple of weeks, we've got two kind of bottom half of the table clubs in Bournemouth and Ipswich. I mean, Bournemouth have actually been pretty good and kind of a fun team to watch this year. And I think especially over the last couple of weeks as Evan Nilsson has, I think I'm saying that right? Evan Nilsson, as Evan Nilsson has really come on. And honestly, talking about possible transfers, if Vardy were out, Evan Nilsson in would not be the worst transfer. I mean, it would save me a fair amount of money. It actually might allow me to still make the switch from one of my cheap midfielders over to Saka, like if you were healthy in a week or so. I mean, so Evan Nilsson, I'm just going to pull this up as we're talking here, Brandon. He's cheap. He's 5.9 million. Like he's even cheaper than I realized. My God. And he scored in his last 3 matches, and he had an assist in the match before that. So attacking returns in 4 straight matches, and yet he is still down 0.1 on his starting price. He is owned by 1.6% of managers in the game. And our good friends at the Hub have Bournemouth's next run of fixtures as the strongest run of fixtures of any team. Yeah. Like it is not a bad. Too. He's on pens too. So and Semenyo may have a little bit of an injury as well, so possibly even stronger there. So I think he does pass the eye test. Like I feel like he looks good. Like he looks like a great buy for Bournemouth.
He does have that profile of a forward that you could see really just quickly grow into the league. Like he's not shying away from the basically the spirit of the Premier League. Reminds me a little bit of Ollie Watkins in the way that he plays, where his game is all about movement and strength. Yep. And he like fills that MFFA, like make fantasy fun again sort of player profile too. Like this is a guy who I agree. Like he is part of what is making Bournemouth really fun to watch right now.
And just like the next 5 fixtures for Bournemouth, like you tell me where the bad one is here for their, at least for their attacking players. Home to Brighton, away to Wolves, home to Spurs, away to Ipswich, home to West Ham. Man, it's a great run. I mean, there's not a bad. I mean, maybe defensively
they could get this guy right now on the pod. Oh my God!
Yeah, exactly. So it's an exciting run for them, and I think he's a really good buy. And I think he's a real make fantasy fun again buy because his ownership is so low, right? And so you can kind of, it's a good chance to get in. I mean, God, congrats to everyone who got him already because. He's
all
been
10
great
of
the
you.
last couple of weeks. Yeah, all 10 of you, exactly. And then the other squad that has a nice run, pretty diminishing returns really once you get past the top 2, I think, but or at least more of a mixed bag is Ipswich. They've got Man United at home, which again, I think from an attacking point of view is fine. Like I think this is going to be like a lot of Ipswich matches this year, which is like a 3-2 win for somebody, right? Something like that. Forest away, pretty tricky match. Palace and Bournemouth at home, so not bad. And then Wolves away. So I think it's fine from an attacking perspective. The problem is from a fantasy point of view, it's a little more chaotic with them, right? Like you have Leif Davis, who you can't really own in fantasy because they concede so many goals. You have Liam Delap, who I think is like a good own, but maybe his ceiling isn't like crazy high. Would you say? I mean, what do you think about Liam Delap? You had him for like 4 weeks so far.
Yeah, I mean, he has 2 double-digit game weeks already this season, and for a player on a promoted side, I'd say that's a pretty relatively high ceiling.
Yeah, you're right. I guess he just had 11.
There's an inconsistency to Delap, which is frustrating. But if you just look at since he scored a brace against Aston Villa in game week 6, he's had 2 blanks. So he's had 2 out of 6 blanks. That is incredible for a 5.6 million forward. So I think you put him in the same camp as Evan Nilsson. So if you have the money to do Evan Nilsson, I think we're both saying that's the move. If for whatever reason you're short and you can only afford 5.6, Liam Delap is you'll drive Liam Delap off the lot today, and you'll be a happy customer.
Yeah, I agree. I still, I was probably underselling him a little bit there, and I think given their strong run of fixtures, I think I guess I do like him just a little bit less than Evan Olsen, but I think you summed it up nicely there.
Leif Davis, he is like his sort of like vibe is inflated by his 10-point haul against Leicester. Beyond that, he's just really surviving on meager assist points and no clean sheets. So I think the problem with Leif Davis is you really should be filling the Leif Davis slot in your team with a 4 million defender, because you're going to find it very hard to start this guy. Like if I own Leif Davis, like as fun as he could be to have in your fantasy team on a particular game week, it's going to be less fun just like rarely being able to justify playing him, starting him.
Do you think you'd like him more or less if his name was spelled Leaf instead of Leif?
Less.
It's I don't know. I got to think that one through a little bit. Let's come back to that. I want to consider a little bit more.
It's kind of like a Viking feel, like Leif Erikson sort of a vibe.
I'm sure that's where it comes from. Yeah. All right. Well, let's and then you got Villa below that. Villa have what are the best kind of home fixtures of the next 4, right? They're I can't believe how much fixture talk we're doing in this pod, but it's we almost never do this actually. But they have Palace, Brentford, and Southampton at home in 3 of the next 4. So let's, Brandon, put our hands together and pray that Ezri Konsa is healthy, because they're really. I guess the Brentford match is tricky just because Brentford can score on anybody, but certainly I see a couple of clean sheets ahead for Villa.
I do as well, and that's Emery. Like when the going gets tough, I feel like Emery will fall back on his ability to set up a team to at least keep clean sheets, play well defensively. Yeah,
I think there's they have an interest. Like it feels like they're trying to integrate a lot of young attacking midfielders into their squad, and I think they maybe have some growing pains with that, right? Like with Ramsey, and then you have this problem with Leon Bailey, just like is unplayable all of a sudden, right? And he was excellent last season, so I feel like that's become a little bit of an issue too. And so I wonder if that's sort of forced their hand a little bit. Then you've got players like Tielemans, who he's a deeper player, but it's like he's not always like a automatic, but kind of needs. I don't know. It's like an interesting. I think they're in an interesting spot.
Bailey's going to be smarting from the humiliation down in Kingston, Jamaica this weekend, or on Thursday night. U.S. really made Bailey invisible, and I hate to see what the U.S. are going to do to those guys in the U.S. tomorrow, Monday night.
The second leg. Yeah, is that Monday night? Yeah, okay. So, CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Nations League. Yeah.
Yes. Garbage.
Yeah, you love it.
Nonsense.
You love it.
Yeah, I hate this. I hate that they've turned friendlies into cups that we're supposed to care about, Brandon. This is my own cross to bear, though. I know I have to stop complaining about it eventually.
Yeah, you do.
Some people like it. All right, so I want to move my way down to the squads with bad fixtures. Okay, but just as I may make my way down here, as I start scrolling down, what do you think about Isak? He has an okay run, I guess. It's pretty good. West Ham and Leicester at home in the next couple home matches in the next 5. Way to Palace. I don't know. Palace have been shipping goals, so maybe that's fine. Home to Liverpool could be tricky. Way to Brentford, tricky. Like now that I've sort of sung the praises of Evan Ilson, sure. Is his ceiling as high as Isak's? No. Is he 3 million cheaper? Yes. Is there a strong enough argument for Isak to go over some of the cheaper Evan Ilson, Delap types that might be available?
I do. Isak is just a better player, and on a slightly better team that will give you better fantasy output. I think where Evan Ilson, we're singing his praises because he's going to get a goal here or there, maybe everywhere. But Isak is going to get goals, plural. And that's the case that you would make. I think that's the extra point, the extra $3 million that you pay.
Yeah.
And, he's been active for Sweden over the break. He scored against Slovakia yesterday on Saturday. He's got another match to go. He's just in great form. I mean, he's kind of just like all the good things you could say about Evan Nilsson, you would say about Isak, but then also add on to that. You've seen Isak do that in the Premier League for more than a full season at this point.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, 21 goals last season, just 4 on the season for him so far, and I think it's a little hard still to get over what was a really brutal start for him. Many of us, myself included, had Isak to start the season, and that team just really didn't find their footing. They still really haven't, to a degree. I mean, it's great. I mean, even just looking, was it 5 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws? I mean, I guess it's not terrible, but it just it feels chaotic, right? It feels like watching them this season has been. It's a lot like watching Spurs, where you're just like, I genuinely don't know. Like, they could beat or lose to anybody, and that's sort of just week in and week out. It's been. I mean, they beat Arsenal. Week before that, they lose to Chelsea, and it's just like it's sort of all over the place. They draw with Man City, but then they lose away to Fulham 3-1. Right? It's like every week there's sort of like a different squad that shows up.
Totally. But Isak, I think Isak is a good move as well for people who feel like they're sort of chasing at this point in the season. He just does feel like he's got that, it's borderline captainable in a phenomenal fixture.
I hear you. I guess I just feel like, I guess I'm sort of talking myself out of him as we go through this pod, just because he's so expensive. And I have found him over the years to be a frustrating own in fantasy. He is not the most consistent. I mean, again, 21 goals last season, which is fantastic, but I find it to be kind of a streaky forward, not always easy to bring in at the right time. I think he's a pretty. I was talking about Saka as a real high floor player. I feel like Isak is a low floor player, right? You could get 16 points, but you could very easily get 2, right? Where
he's a bit of a dirt basement situation, more of a crawl space.
Real people under the stairs situation going on with him sometimes. All right, well let's move on to the squads that have bad fixtures. As I make my way through here, I can see that Chelsea are really in the exact middle in terms of, as are Man City, really. Some good, some bad. Right. It's like it's all okay. It's not terrible. Although actually, I feel like the rating system, if you look at it from an attacking perspective for Chelsea, I actually think it's fine. Like for Cole Palmer, away to Leicester, away to Southampton, and 2 of the next 3. I mean, those are great fixtures for Palmer. He's certainly my vice captain this week, for example. Despite the fact that he had back-to-back blanks, and I think it was the first time he had back-to-back blanks going back to like game week 8 of 2023 or something like that. It was, it'd been like a full year since that had happened.
It's funny with Palmer for me because I have been saving a spot for Palmer since he scored that goal against Newcastle and was like man of the match. Could have easily scored more coming off of his 4-goal return shortly before that. And I'm just like, if I don't get this guy ASAP, he's going to bury me. Yeah. And I just kind of held my breath. Not owning him for the last few weeks, and I've gotten away with it with those 2 blanks.
Yep.
But so that all went according to plan. But now that it's come time for me to actually get him, you're like, well, couple of blanks.
Yeah.
Look at these fixtures. Are you sure you want this guy?
So exactly.
It's definitely one of those players where I'm like, no, stick to the plan. Like Cole Palmer is a stick to the plan sort of fantasy asset, and
I do agree with you. Although it is certainly. I don't know. It's been frustrating for sure, right? He's been a little inconsistent this season, and that has been a little frustrating for sure.
Yeah, it's just like the mountain of returns in the various fixtures. Like I will, I'll take your blanks, sir. Thank you very much. Now give me a 30-point return.
Yeah, but I think what I will say is I still think that he's got. I don't know why I keep falling back on this cliche, but I do think that he does have a lower floor than Saka, right? Like, I think that Saka is like the ultimate vice captain pick, right? Like, because Saka's going to get you 6 points with like just remarkable, like metronomic consistency, right? Whereas Palmer, and he can have big returns certainly as well, but Palmer is you might get some blanks thrown in there, but you also, like you said, you might get a 30-pointer, and so again, that's why ideally you want both, right? But obviously it's hard to do, and this being fantasy, it's like we have these great plans, and then everybody gets injured, and it's like impossible to, it should be like on a t-shirt, right? Like you have all these great plans, and everybody gets injured. That's really fantasy in a nutshell. All right, well let's go down though, Brandon, and just take a quick look at the teams that have some poor fixtures up ahead. I don't know how like massively fantasy relevant this is. I will say Man United being near the bottom here, again, it's one of those things where from a kind of defensive perspective, maybe it's not ideal, but from an attacking point of view, certainly 3 of the next 4 are pretty good, right? Away to Ipswich, home to Everton, away to Arsenal, obviously not great, and then home to Forest. So I mean, from a Bruno owning kind of point of view, I think 3 of the next 4 look great. Right. I don't know, but
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So Ipswich away, yes. Everton.
That match can be tricky sometimes.
It can be tricky. Then you've got Arsenal. Then you got Forest, who have one of the best defensive records in the league at the moment. And then it's a Manchester derby right after that. So it's like, this is a great moment for Manchester United. And like going into the break, you're kind of like your fantasy brain is saying, well, I need to pay attention to this now.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not certain how urgent this is. And the Ipswich match falling in their first match coming out of the break with Almiron. We'll get his name down at some point. That's kind of a gift to him. And I think it's, if they come out with the new manager and just stomp on Ipswich, it's going to go bananas in the fantasy world, where everyone's going to be scrambling to get the Manchester United assets. And then I do think that run becomes kind of unfavorable in a way.
Yeah. And I think it's just like, we have to see it, right? Like we've just been down this road, and Man United fans certainly know what I'm talking about here. It's just like, we've just been down this road so many times with Man United managerial switches over the last decade, and they come in and they're the answer. And I don't know, it's like, well, but hopefully, I mean, I don't know, like the league is probably more fun when Man United are really good, right? They're sort of like, it's like the Dallas Cowboys. Like there's something to be said for like having like a team that you sort of love to hate, right? As a contending team in the Premier League. And even Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, when he kind of had that team rolling for a short spell there, was like, it made it fun, right? It was sort of, and I feel it, so I wouldn't like, there's sort of something about the dourness of the Ten Hag era, right? And just him bringing in Dutch player after Dutch player that was kind of flopping here. And it was sort of, and I mean, listen, I love the Dutch as much as the next man,
sure.
Brandon,
We're talking about players from the Dutch league, not actual Dutch people, though.
That is true, exactly, and those players I could take or leave, Brandon. So that's true. And it's another squad.
You're not betting on an Anthony resurgence under new management?
No, I'm not actually.
Surgence?
But I think when he's at Fenerbahce, he's going to be incredible. 25 goal season.
Yeah.
The Forest, who you and I have been big upping for a long time now, are at the bottom of this little table here, and they are. I feel like, and you have Chris Wood. It feels like the strategy is to hold for 2 weeks, right? Hold for this Ipswich fixture, and then jettison somebody.
I know. It was all like, I guess this was basically I treated Chris Wood like he was cryptocurrency. I brought him in for one fixture, made some money off of him. Yeah. Got no fantasy points.
Yep.
And now I'm kind of like, how do I offload this? How do I put this back into the blockchain so I can move on to the next Bored Ape? So it's kind of where I'm at with Chris Wood, though. As noted, he's doing his thing during the break. Yep. He could come. If anyone's going to stun Arsenal, it'll be Chris Wood, and then boom, you've got that really tasty Ipswich fixture. So obviously, he's got two shots here before we start talking about offloading this guy.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at game week 12, Brandon, which is coming up on Saturday. We have a nice early match, so maybe we'll get some news on Jamie Vardy. It should be it's a fun way to kick things off because you do have and I'll share it so you and I can both look at it at the same time. But so you have Leicester host Chelsea. I think that could be a fun match. In my brain, Brandon, the first match out of international break tends to be a kind of high scoring affair, a little bit loose, a little bit shaggy. So I'm hoping, or it's the other way around. It's like a 0-0 or a 3-3, right? It's one of those two. So we'll see. But I think certainly I think Palmer is I suppose he's a somewhat like a little bit of a differential captain if you want to be a little different for game week 12. I think that makes a lot of sense. Leicester have shown an ability to score against almost anybody, but their defense has been pretty weak all season. So I think Chelsea will score a couple on this one.
Yeah, it was interesting right before. I mean, interesting not that Palmer orchestrated this. This is to something the press would do.
Yeah.
But his comments being surfaced in the press right before the international break about how surprised he was to not see more minutes during the Euros under Gareth Southgate. I don't know if that's just him communicating to Tuchel ahead of him taking over, or him just basically saying like, hey, I'll see the England squad when you're ready to give me a little bit more respect or something like this. So him not factoring into the break feels like really kind of fraught and definitely not revolving around some sort of an injury. That's my speculation.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me. Madueke, I was reading about him today, and there was a lot of talk about how his performance in the England match and how Saka has competition now, Brandon, after Madueke's performance.
Madueke, he cracks me up. Like, there's that only one thing that guy is going to do when he gets the ball. What's that one thing he's going to do, Josh?
Score a goal. I don't know. Shoot. Well, he's going to shoot, right? Yeah. Hey, we want that in fantasy, though, don't we?
We do, I guess, but not really, because he's not often in the best position when he chooses to shoot. Okay. So what we want in fantasy are a guys surrounding our real guy, Cole Palmer, to be passing the ball. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, that's true. That's fair. All right. So in terms of a lot of these other fixtures, we kind of have to wait on some injury news, really, to know what to say. I mean, Arsenal Forest, again, it really depends on who's healthy on the Arsenal squad. Villa Palace, kind of the same way. I think the Man City Spurs match, which you pointed to the start of the pod, I think it's going to be really interesting. I am not as confident as, I mean, sure, yeah, obviously, like, this is not a match where you're like, you need to think about selling Haaland or do anything ridiculous like benching him. But I don't necessarily see this as a clear win for Man City. I think this could be another tough match for them. I think that it could be Spurs, I think, would even have an outside shot at winning this match, right? And so, I mean, just, if the entire back line is injured for Man City and they're already struggling, right, to sort of move through the middle, like Ederson can't like create every assist. It's like they have to like be able to move from, I mean, it's not very obvious, but like you just got to be able to move from the keeper to the defenders to without Rodri, right? It's just been a struggle to like build up an attack. And so if a bunch more players are going to be out this coming Saturday, then I think that just again is going to be a match where they're going to struggle to dominate the opposition the way they typically have done at home.
The Rodri injury has exposed just how horrible the club management of the defensive sort of unit at City has been. Like, there's just Gvardiol was a great signing, but he's not there to shore up the back line, start attacks. He's doing his own thing off on the left.
Sure.
So yeah, and so if you in this match, if you focus on Spurs, yes, we'll point they're missing two center backs. They're not really missing anybody else. Then you look at City and you're like, well, they're kind of like missing everybody,
right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I take your point.
Yeah.
It really is. Can City manage to just put their game plan into practice? Whatever players they have, and if so, Haaland's going to get his chances. But yeah, this is not going to. It's definitely not going to be a rout. And I think I think best case fantasy wise is that it's going to be like a 4-4.
Yeah.
Where everybody's scoring. Solanke, play him with confidence, I think, in this match.
Yeah.
And
one of the better late Saturday games we've had in a while too. Like I'm actually surprised they didn't make this a Sunday match. I guess you just can't have the same couple of squads all the time on Sunday. But Ipswich Man United has become the featured match on Sunday instead. So, which admittedly I am interested in. I'm very curious what happened. That should be a fun game. But
I think it probably has something to do with Champions League fixtures in the midweek the Champions League teams get to play Saturday just to give them more prep time for the midweek match.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they've always been that like nice to the teams though, right? But yeah, I mean that probably is a factor. And then the next day we've got Liverpool Southampton. Again, I would love positive news on Trent, but not expecting it. And then that Man United Ipswich match, and then we end with a kind of like you know what it is? It's the classic no European fixtures game that you get on a Monday sometimes. It's like a little bit better because the teams are kind of pedigreed teams or whatever. But Newcastle West Ham, it's like kind of a weird one, right? Like just like that,
some narrative with the teams, and
should really be on Saturday, bunched up with 6 other games, so we don't really have to watch it, right?
It's again, we'll come back to that Isak question, Josh. I mean, this is the one reason to really go for Isak is your Monday will be that much more fun, juiced.
Yeah, but if you had to, if you could swap the Monday game with one other match this weekend, what match would you? I mean, let's exclude Man City. Any team that couldn't play.
Fulham Wolves, I think, is a good Monday match. Yeah,
totally agree. Bournemouth Brighton, I put that one there too. Those would both be fun. All right, well that's your weekend. I think in terms of captaincy, we talked about a little bit already. I think Salah is just the clear captain pick. He didn't basically Egypt said, we don't need you right now. Take the time.
Thanks, but no thanks, Mo.
Thanks, but no thanks. Rest up. So you have a fully rested Mo Salah, Liverpool team Mo Salah is such a that guy's like, he loves being a front runner, right? Like Mo Salah when they're good, he's got like a sort of Tiger Woods-ish quality, right? Where it's just like when he's on top, he's even better.
Red.
What's that?
He wears red.
He wears red. Exactly. He wears red. Yeah. So, and it's a Sunday too. So, I think that it's, I just think that it's a
numerology corner over here.
Yeah. It feels like a don't overthink it captain pick. If you have Salah, I think he's a great pick. I think Haaland is fine because Spurs cannot keep clean sheets. And so, Man City will score 1 or 2 goals and Haaland will be involved in those goals. Everybody else, I would say, is slightly trickier. I actually think Isak is a pretty good captain pick as well if you want to go off the board. Palmer, I guess I just don't like him as much, although I plan to vice captain him just because of the little dip in form the last couple of weeks, and it being the first match of the international break, which again, it's just unpredictable. I think that match can be a little bit like shaking the rust off. I don't know why 7:30 versus a match that starts 2.5 hours later is really any different. But in my head, it feels like that one is like a weird. It's like they all know in their head that they're the kickoff match for the Premier League.
And all these midday kickoffs, they get to watch Leicester Chelsea and be like, I remember now.
Yeah, that's how you kick the ball. Yeah, exactly. So, all right.
Go.
Well, yeah. So that's our pod for today. Hopefully this was helpful or at the very least interesting or fun to listen to. We'll be back on Thursday with a game week 12 preview podcast, hopefully with a little more injury news to report. And maybe Brendan, you and I can talk on that pod a little bit more about the moves we plan to do. I don't even really know yet because it's boring, but I just have to wait on the severity of these injuries before I can decide. I mean, with 6 flagged players, you just cannot make a move a week out, right? You've got to wait as long as you can.
Totally. A little news would be helpful for sure. Great. Well, if you like what you hear, you want to tune in for that Patreon podcast, you can go support us and throw a nickel in the tip jar at patreon.com/always cheating. And at the end of every episode, of course, we thank our producers. Josh, I'll throw it to you to say thanks to the big dogs.
Great. Thanks to Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wegner-Lodell. Dave is not on Blue Sky yet, Brandon. I gotta push him to get him on there, I think. Our buddy Chris Howell is on there. That's what made me think of it. Chris is posting all about Tennessee on there. They had a tough loss this weekend, but I think they're still going to make the playoff. Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Chin, Babas Kuhn, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner as he does it, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislov, Fro Jacobson, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadakia, Rishi Nigam, Noah Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, James Murray Wood, part of the three Jameses, Brandon. I know that's how you like to say it. James.
The three Jims.
Yeah, the three Jims. James Murray Wood, James C., and James Holland, Scully, and of course, last but not least, Craig at Total Maths Tutoring. Brandon, where can people find the podcast?
You can find us wherever fine podcasts are given away for free. They just give these things away.
Yeah.
And that's how it works.
YouTube show now.
Yeah, you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@alwayscheating. Just search for it. Every podcast app, and wherever you do, give us a thumbs up, a like, subscribe, so you don't miss an episode. And as Josh mentioned, follow us on Blue Sky at Always Cheating FPL. Just search Always Cheating up there, and wherever else you get social media, you can probably find us there too. All this information and more is at your fingertips at alwayscheating.com.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday or next Sunday. Bye.